Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining me this morning or this afternoon on the Courageous Conversations with Confidence. Just a few housekeeping for everybody, for all the participants. Feel free to ask me questions. There is a chat button in Zoom where you can just send me some messages. You can isolate the question to myself or to all participants, but feel free to drop me messages throughout the webinar if you have any questions. So as I said, thank you so much for joining me this afternoon. This will be the first in a series of webinars I plan to host over the next few months. So if you enjoy, which I'm sure you'll enjoy what you hear, please share the invites with persons when the next ones come out. So you're here this morning to talk about, or this afternoon, it's 12 o'clock, never quite sure what time of day, to look at how you can gain some confidence with having courageous conversations. I think someone's haven't got their mute button on. Just bear me a second. Let me see if anybody's on mute. Everybody's on mute. Okay. So this is for you. This webinar is ideal for you if you are avoiding a conversation that you know you need to have. So you know you need to say it, but you just can't find the words or the confidence to say what you have to say. It's for you. Just bear with me. It's for you if you dread the thought of having conversations with a particular loved one, a colleague, or even a boss. And this is for you, this webinar for you, if you struggle trying to work out how to start those difficult conversations, you find yourself losing your nerve whenever you go to have that conversation. You are in the right place this afternoon to find out how we're going to deal with that. So why is it important not to avoid those difficult conversations? So in this webinar, you'll learn, or you'll hear about why it's important not to avoid those difficult conversations, understand why you're avoiding having that difficult conversation, how to prepare yourself for courageous conversations, and the 4 steps that can confidently enable you to have a courageous conversation. So by the end of the webinar, you will feel confident that you'll be able to have the conversation that you've been avoiding today. So whether that be that with a loved one, a friend, a colleague, you'll have the confidence by the end of the webinar to have the confidence to say that. Now, what gives me the qualifications to kind of take, and at this, so at the end of this as well, if you stay through the whole webinar, there's also a free gift after that. So that's your guide to having courageous conversations. So there'll be a few more hints and tips and ideas of how to actually begin the conversation after the webinar, which I will send out to everybody who attends. Now, some background to me. I'm Janice Sutherland. Who am I? Well, I am many things. I am a certified executive and life coach. I'm a mother. I'm a wife. I'm a divorcee. I've been a CEO. I've worked at senior management for a number of organizations, both in the UK and the Caribbean. I'm also the host of the Phenomenal Woman podcast. So throughout my life, I have had the experience of having many, many courageous conversations in my lifetime in all walks of life. And within my Warrior program, the Confidence and Personal Development program I run, there is, what do you think is the key biggest challenge that people in the program actually struggle with? If you want to leave me a message, let me know. Just drop me in the chat. What do you think is the biggest challenge that people in the program struggle with? Okay, so I will tell you what they struggle with. What they struggle with is this: how do I tell whoever the person is that's something that person probably doesn't want to hear. So that's the key thing. How do I tell someone that is something they don't want to hear? How do I do that? For example, I don't like the friends that my child is hanging out with. How do I tell her without losing the bond or the trust that we have? My friend is high maintenance. How do I tell her to stay somewhere else next time she wants to visit? I babysit my grandchildren once 1 day per week, but it's come too much. How do I tell my son or my daughter that I don't want to do it anymore? I don't want a big fancy wedding. How do I tell my mother this? And my husband's retired. Well, it's not so retired there. He's a young one if he's retired. But my husband's at home all the time. And how do I tell him I need some time alone? So what do all these situations have in common? You have a mother that doesn't want to upset her daughter. You have a grandmother that doesn't want to sound like she doesn't care for a grandchild, or a grandfather that doesn't want to sound like he doesn't care for his grandchild. You have a woman that doesn't want to criticize her friend. And you have a bride-to-be who doesn't want to insult her mother. And lastly, a wife who doesn't want to upset their wife. But really, what's the real challenge? They all look very similar, but what's the real challenge? On the surface, it looks like the advice seekers want to protect the feelings of the other person. But what's really going on, if we look closer, is that we see all the questions, there's something deeper. They want to take the action without experiencing the consequences of the action. So for all of these people asking for advice, the feelings they're really protecting are their own. It's not about the other person. It's about not feeling uncomfortable. So this is how we want to feel. We want to feel that when we have this conversation, we can be relaxed, the cozy fire, the slippers a bit hard when they're in the Caribbean, but you get what I mean. We just want it to be all really comfortable. And all of the situations we just talked about are really ripe for generating discomfort. So, for instance, the conversation might become difficult. The other person might become emotional. The other person might criticize and judge them. And these are situations we often want to avoid, especially when we fear conflict, disapproval, or rejection, which is why most people ask the question, how can I do this nicely? Which is another way of saying, how can I do this without feeling uncomfortable? And you need to understand that feeling uncomfortable results from the underlying belief that what you're going to do or the conversation you're going to have is wrong. So the belief could be something like, I shouldn't have the conversation because I'll be rocking the boat. I can let sleeping dogs lie. I'm selfish if I ask for what I want. It's rude to say no. You may not even be aware of the belief, only that you get a heavy knot in your stomach every time you're going to act that way. So the next steps is, how can you confidently get your point across without upsetting or hurting the feelings of the recipient? Find the right words to say without feeling you'll upset or hurt the feelings of the recipient. Or find the right words to say. And comfortably have the conversation that you've been avoiding. Well, there is a way you can do that, and I'll take you through that now. So the secret to confident, courageous conversation is a model I call DAX, a model I've created. So the first step for that is discover. Now, the first thing you have to do before you have the conversation is actually have an attitude of curiosity and discovery. Pretend that you really don't know anything that's going on. Try to learn as much as you can about the person that you're going to have the conversation with and their point of view. In other words, put yourself in their shoes. Pretend you're entertaining somebody from a different planet. Find out how things look from their point of view, how certain events affect the other person, and what their values and priorities are. And if that person really was from another planet, what would you look for to get some clues? You'd look at body language. You would listen for the unspoken energy. What do they really want? What are they not saying? And when the conversation starts, let them talk until they're finished. Don't interrupt, except to acknowledge that you're having the conversation. Whatever you hear, don't take it personally. It really isn't about you. It's not about you. Try to learn as much as you can in this phase of the conversation. You'll get your turn, but just don't rush things. The next thing is acknowledge. So acknowledgement means that you've heard and you've understood. Try to understand the other person so well that you can actually make the argument for them. So if you had to be in their shoes and look it from their point of view, you'd be able to repeat what they said and understand what they're saying. Explain back to them what you think they're really going for. Guess at their hopes, honor their position. They won't change their point of view unless they can see that you can see where they stand. Then they might, but there really are no guarantees, so just remember that. Acknowledge whatever you can, including your own defensiveness, if it comes up, and you may get defensive, but that's fine. It just is. You can decide later how to address that. So, for example, if you have an argument with a friend, you can say, I notice I'm being defensive, but I think it's because your voice just got a little louder or you sounded angry. And I just really want to talk about the topic. Excuse me. I'm not trying to persuade you in any direction. So that acknowledgement that you've actually listened or heard what they've said helps to recenter the conversation. And acknowledgement can be really difficult if we associate with agreement. You're not saying that you agree with the point of view just because you're acknowledging it. Just that you're acknowledging, you hear what they're saying. So keep it separate. So my saying this sounds really important to you doesn't mean that I'm going to go along with your decision. The next thing is to clarify. When you sense that the person you're having the conversation with has expressed all their energy on the topic, it's then your turn. So what can you see from their perspective that they've missed? How clarify your position without minimizing his? So, for example, from what you've told me, I can see how you came to that conclusion. I'm not a team player. Conclusion that I'm not a team player, and I think that I am. So when I introduce problems with the project, I'm thinking about the long-term success of it. I don't mean to be a critic, though perhaps I sound like one. So maybe we can talk about how to address these situations so my intention is clear. And lastly is solve. Now you've done all the brain brainstorming, you've gone through the reasons, you've heard and understood the other person's position, you've made your position clear as well. So the next thing is about building solutions. So you keep on maybe brainstorm, you keep on inquiring, you keep on asking questions. Ask your partner what they think would work. What do they think the solution is? Whatever they say, find something you like and build on it. And if the conversation becomes adversarial, gets a little bit heated, go back to where you were looking at what they were trying to or discover. Go back to discovering what they were trying to say. Asking for the other person's point of view at this stage usually creates safety and encourages them to engage. So if you've been successful at centering the conversation and adjusting your attitude, engaging with discovery and acknowledgement will take it the next step, and you'll be able to conclude the conversation. So those are the 4 steps in the DAX model, which is discover, acknowledge, clarify, and solve. And if you didn't get a chance to make a note of all those, I will cover it off in the handout I send out after the webinar. So any questions so far? Put questions in the chat. Any questions?
No questions.
Oh, fabulous. So you do.
No questions, is it?
Fabulous. Thank you very much. Great. Great. Now, there are some of the questions I usually get asked after this. So a couple of questions would normally come up. Get past the build. So the question is, a couple of questions I normally get when we have this program is, how do I actually start a courageous conversation? So if I put the answers in there. So there's lots of ways, let me go back. There's lots of ways to start the conversation, but the key thing is to actually prepare yourself for it. So understand that the purpose for you having the conversation, what do you hope to gain? What do you hope to accomplish? What would be the ideal outcome? But don't have a hidden agenda. Don't assume the outcome, but I'll cover more about that in the guide. Secondly, what if the person gets upset or angry, which can be highly likely depending on the topic? Well, the first thing is to don't take it personally. Don't take the verbal attacks personally. It's just that person lashing out. So help them to come back to the actual conversation, to the topic in hand. Don't match their feelings. So if they get angry or raise the voice, don't do the same. Don't get drawn in. And if you have to, step away from the conversation. Acknowledge that you can see that they feel strongly about it, but and before you say anything or resume, you give them some empathic thought to what the person is saying, feeling where they're coming. So look, I understand what you're saying, I understand what you're feeling, but right now it seems a little bit heated for you. Let's just step away for 5 minutes and then come back to it. So be understanding of their point of view, and that if you respect them, and let them know you respect them and you want to resolve the situation. Thirdly, what if I forget what I want to say? So sometimes you get so caught up in the conversation that you forget what your points were or what you wanted to get across. So own it. Just say you've forgotten. Ask for a few seconds or a little bit of time just to recollect your thoughts, just to get your thoughts back together. And if it helps, for me personally, sometimes I find it helps to write down the points that I want to get across before the conversation. And I'll sometimes, especially in a meeting, I take them with me and I refer to them. So I tell the person that I wanted to make sure I fully understood the situation and that I wanted to make sure I got all my points across. So I made a note of them before we had the meeting. And then lastly, how do I handle my own stress? Now, if you followed all the steps in the DAX model, your stress really should be lower than normal because you've had some chat, you've had some time to prepare, you know what you want to say, you know what you want to get covered off. But the couple of things you can be aware of if you go into these conversations and you have a little nervous or stress is to know what your triggers are. So what would increase the stress levels for you in a conversation, so you're aware of them before they actually happen, or you can spot them coming. Secondly, take a break. If you need to take a break, and if it's getting too much, you just feel like I'm not going to get my point across and get my point across right, just take a break. Thirdly, breathe. Breathe. Deep breaths. Breathing does a hell of a lot. Just take time. Stop. You probably got so stressed you've starved your brain of oxygen. Take some time to breathe, and just or lastly, just prepare yourself mentally. So you would have done that by going into the conversation. So those are a couple of things. Those are key questions I normally get when people say, I really don't know how to have this conversation. How comfortable, how can I make myself comfortable? Any other questions?
No questions as yet. You can proceed.
Excellent. So that's really how you get through a courageous conversation. So next, let me ask you a question. If I had a way for you to be confident in all aspects of your life, or could show you how to be confident in all areas of your life, how many would you be interested in hearing about it? I'm going to take your silence, but everybody wants to hear about it. So I have a program, a special program called Warrior. It's a confidence and personal development program that helps you, that enables you to show up confidently in all areas of your life. Now, everybody struggles with their confidence at some time in their life. For us, it could be self-doubt, and low confidence are always a constant. They're always constant companions, impacting our ability to achieve our potential. Sometimes you can find it hard to speak up assertively. You may worry about what people think of you, or you focus on people pleasing, so you don't always put yourself first. You sometimes struggle to say no, or you get stuck in life. And it's more than likely that your self-confidence is the reason or the culprit for you feeling that way. Now, the fabulous news is that self-confidence isn't something you're born with. It's actually something you can develop, you can learn to overcome, and you can build it using the Warrior program that I've developed. And that's as born throughout my own personal experiences and my time spent coaching many women like people like yourself on this call right now. Now, Warrior is ideal for you because if you want to be showing up, if you want to show up and be seen in your career, but you lack the courage or the skills to put yourself out there. You want to speak up more assertively at work and in relationships. You want to be taken more seriously. You want to get more of what you want. You know you could achieve much more if you trusted and believed in yourself rather than worrying about what other people think. And whether you have a clear vision of what you want your life to be like, or perhaps you know things just aren't quite right, Warrior can help you get the clarity and support for you to overcome your self-doubt chatter, that little thing you hear in your head that tells you you can't get where you need to get to, you can't get clarity, you're not going to reach the levels you want to achieve. Helps you trust yourself to make decisions and speak up when you need to. And I will help you to look at your life and your work with a fresh perspective. Identify where you want to be, explore what's been holding you back, and help you move forwards with some clarity, courage, and confidence. Now, the program starts by helping you understanding your inner thinking and challenging the negative beliefs you may have about yourself. I then share with you some exercises and techniques to develop your inner confidence and enable you to truly value who you are. These are skills that you can keep on using, you keep returning to time and time again. But once you've learned them, they're yours for life. So as I said, the more times you may feel because right now you want to go for the program because you don't know how to move forward, you no longer recognize your own self-worth, sometimes you just don't feel good enough, maybe you suffer from low self-esteem, and because your self-talk sometimes, that little voice in your head that we all have, little inner gremlin, can be really, really mean. So the areas I cover off in the program, it's a 7-week program. I conduct it virtually. So as we're here now on a whatever day of the week it's going to be, we're sitting here and we're having the program. You don't have to leave where you are. You can be in the comfort of your own home. But it's 7 weeks living virtually. First of all, this first section is awareness. So we look at recognizing self-imposed limiting beliefs and how to overcome them. We look at the positive achievements you do have in your life with your current limiting beliefs and what could be achieved if you actually discarded them. We then look at Absolve, where we identify your inner critic, and you differentiate the inner critic from the facts in your life, because the inner critic is there to protect you. What they tell you isn't always the truth and isn't always factual. But you develop the skills to respond to your inner critic. You develop the tools to how to manage her or him, and you can confidently challenge the inner critic when they arise. We then move on to restore, and that looks increasing your self-confidence and develop the ability to love and nurture who you are for what you are. We then go into recognize, where we look and celebrate our personal strengths. We recognize and celebrate our strengths. We look at opportunities where they can be enhanced. So you develop an appreciation for who you've become so far and who you're going to be. You identify the things that you currently do well, but you actually take for granted. And you learn to not focus only on your mistakes. In Determine, we start visualizing what the future you want in your life, the life you want for your future. So you start identifying your personal goals and aspirations. You start developing the ability to identify your meaningful goals, and you start creating a vision for yourself. And empower, this is where we learn to take back control. You learn to take back control of who you are, and having the feeling of being in control of your life. You start increasing your own personal confidence, and you get to clearly see the choices that are available for you to move forward in your life. And lastly is transform. That's the last week. Now, this is about creating your personal development plan that takes you to the next level. So it's redefining what's important to you. It's about clarifying your priorities. It's about maintaining a balance in your life to achieve what you want. It's facing your current realities, what's really achievable, and what are the realities you have to work with right now. But you also get to envision your future. Now, within the Warrior Program, what you'll get a weekly online group coaching. So every week we'll have a group coaching section, and it'll revolve around the topic of that particular week. You'll get group accountability, can't get the word out this morning, support sessions. So once we've defined what we're going to be working on and you've set yourself some goals, we start getting some accountability sessions around those to make sure you start meeting your goals. You get personal mentoring sessions with me, so you have the opportunity to discuss any of the challenges that you're facing or you want to discuss more in depth with me. So that's a personal one-on-one mentoring and coaching session. You get 24/7 coaching email access, so you get to email me your queries, your questions, your concerns, so with some responses. You get exclusive lifetime access to the Warrior Code, and that's a close Facebook group. Now, that group's a group I use where I would put out daily prompts, daily piece of advice to people. You get to meet with the other Warrior women who are in the course to maybe share your experiences or give advice and support. And this is, from an accountability perspective, it's actually really, really crucial and absolutely priceless, because you can't put a price on that. And then you get journal writing. A lot of what I do with this program is around journaling, because once you actually sit and take some time out to sit and think about where the challenges are, or some poignant questions, things you've probably been avoiding asking yourself, you actually find that writing them down actually draws a lot more out of you. So what I do also through the group is I actually provide journal writing supports and prompts that go in line with the particular subject that we're covering off that particular week. Now, all of that is a total value of $1,272 US, and yes, I did value it, but I'm not asking for that today. I'm not asking for that for the course today. Now, there are two options with Warrior. You can have group mentoring, which costs just US $197. So you get group coaching, you get the accountability support, you get the coach support emails, you get the private support group, and you get the journal guidance. And that is just US $197. Now, but if you want to work with me and have the personal mentoring session as well, you get 3 personal mentoring sessions throughout the 7-week period, and that comes up to $397 US for the whole 7-week program. So if that's a way for me to show you how you can see your self-worth. Now, this is some of the feedback I've had from other warriors who've been through the course themselves. So they feel they can now trust themselves rather than just trying to please others. I've identified what success is to me, and I don't feel the need to compare myself to anyone, or more importantly, be critical of myself. I'm enjoying living my life as I choose, rather than worrying about what I need to do or to get to be happy. And I now feel confident enough to make decisions to move my life forward without worrying what people think. So those are some of the feedback I've had from past participants in the program. Now, the next cohort actually starts on the 28th, so in about a week's time, the next cohort of the program begins. Now, all I need you to do, if you want to be part of the next cohort, is just drop me an email in the next hour, just signifying which section, which course you'd like to follow, whether that's the group mentoring or the personal one-to-one mentoring. And if you do that, if you sign up in the next hour, I will actually give you a free 60-minute consultation outside of that. That's around the courageous conversation that you want to have in the next few days. So that's my presentation for this afternoon. Hopefully short and sweet. I kept it 30 minutes, so you've still got the day to go ahead. Are there any questions before we close off? Oh, hang on a minute. Got a question? I have a question. No. Okay. Okay, so if you do have any questions, obviously feel free to drop me a line, drop me an email. You can get me at info at just the bottom there. Let's hide that, shall we? You can get me at info@janicesutherland.com. So just drop me an email signifying which program you'd like to be part of, and we can take it for there. So that'll be fantastic. That'll be fantastic. So I've already had the first one through, so thank you very much. So I look forward to the next webinar. If you have any feedback for me, I'd really appreciate it. So drop me a line, anything you think I can improve or could have covered off. For anybody who's participated today, I will send you the free handout that's about having courageous conversations. So without much further ado, we will sign off for the afternoon, and thank you so much for your attendance today. Thank you.